Ventilation-perfusion mismatch refers to an imbalance between the airflow and blood flow in the lungs, which disrupts efficient gas exchange. For optimal oxygenation of blood and removal of carbon dioxide, ventilation and perfusion should be well matched, and ideally VQ ratio should be approximately 1. This means that for every unit of air that reaches alveoli, there should be a corresponding unit of blood, and this permits to exchange gases effectively. Different lung zones have different VQ ratio, and for exams we have to know why. So here we have 3 lung regions. We have apex, middle part, and the base of the lungs. When we inhale air, air goes through the airways into the alveoli. This process we call ventilation. Each alveoli has its own blood vessels that deliver the oxygenated blood. This process we call perfusion. Air from the alveoli diffuses into the blood, and hemoglobin in the blood picks up oxygen and becomes oxygenated, and such oxygenated blood delivers oxygen to the tissues. So in the apex, there are 3 units of oxygen that reach alveoli, but there is just 1 unit of blood that can pick up oxygen, and this creates VQ ratio 3. In the middle, the general concept is the same. The difference is that in this case, there are 4 oxygen units that reach alveoli, and blood perfusion in the middle of the lungs provides 4 units of deoxygenated blood. 4 oxygen units are picked up by 4 units of blood, and by this we have 4 units of oxygenated blood that is ready to deliver oxygen to the tissues. So in this case, because we have 4 oxygen units for 4 units of blood, the VQ ratio is 1, which is the ideal scenario. In the base of the lungs, again, the concept is the same. In this case, 6 oxygen units reach alveoli, and blood perfusion in the base of the lungs provides 10 units of deoxygenated blood. 6 oxygen units are picked up by 6 units of blood, and by this 6 units of blood becomes oxygenated. But for 4 units of blood there are no oxygen to pick up, and because of this 4 units of blood will remain in deoxygenated state. So in this case, because we have 6 oxygen units for 10 units of blood, the VQ ratio is 0.6. There are 2 key concepts that you should know. First of all, apex of the lungs is the favorable place for Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And also, both ventilation and perfusion are greater at the base of the lungs than at the apex. So let's explain why is that. In the apex, for 3 units of oxygen we have just 1 unit of blood. Because of this, we call this zone of wasted ventilation. And this high oxygen environment at the apex make it a favorable location for certain organisms, like Mycobacterium tuberculosis. In the base, for 6 units of oxygen we have 10 units of blood. Because of this, we call this zone of wasted perfusion. As you probably noticed, both ventilation and perfusion are greater at the base of the lung than at the apex. Ventilation is higher at the base because the lower parts of the lungs expand more during breathing. The perfusion is greater because gravity pulls blood downwards, increasing perfusion at the base. But as you see, the increase in perfusion outpaces ventilation at the base, while ventilation outpaces perfusion at the apex, and this creates these regional mismatches. There are 3 scenarios that are frequently tested on exams. The first clinical scenario is how physical exercises change VQ ratio. So to explain this, we have to understand that during exercises, our tissues require more oxygen. In the apex, the problem is not in ventilation, because we have some oxygen units which are not used simply because we do not have blood units to pick them up. From physiology, we know that blood flow is equal to pressure difference divided on resistance, and resistance is inversely proportional to the force power of radius. So, in response to exercises, our apical capillary is delayed. With vasodilation, radius increase, resistance decrease, and with decrease in resistance, blood flow increase. So, vasodilation provides additional units of blood to pick up oxygen molecules, and by this we can increase the amount of oxygenated blood, and thereby we can increase oxygen delivery to the tissues. So now there will be 3 units of oxygen for 3 units of blood, which gives VQ ratio 1, which is basically ideal scenario. The second scenario is shunt formation. It's the state when VQ ratio becomes 0. So how shunts are formed? There is a possibility that our airways that deliver oxygen to alveoli can become obstructed, for example by a foreign body. In this case, the amount of oxygen that reaches alveoli becomes 0. Perfusion is not affected here, but because oxygen cannot reach blood, blood cannot be oxygenated. So instead of 4 oxygen units that reach alveoli, now there is 0 oxygen units, which gives VQ ratio 0. And interesting that additional oxygen does not help here, because this extra oxygen cannot reach blood due to the obstruction of the airways. The third scenario is formation of a dead space, when VQ ratio becomes infinite. Dead space forms when some factor obstructs blood delivery to the alveoli. Let's suppose that pulmonary emboli cause full obstruction of the capillary. Ventilation is not affected here, but with full obstruction of the capillary, there will be no perfusion, and as a result, there will be no oxygenation of blood. So, in this case, instead of 4 blood units, we have 0, which creates infinite VQ ratio. So, in this case, we have a lot of oxygen units, but no blood units to pick up oxygen, and exactly this state we call dead space. And if capillary is fully obstructed, extra oxygen does not help here, simply because there is no blood to pick up oxygen. But if obstruction is partial, or not all alveoli are blocked, extra oxygen will help. Let's suppose that obstruction is partial. For example, there is thrombus in the capillary. With partial obstruction, less blood units will be able to pick up oxygen. But some portion of blood still will be oxygenated. So in this case, the VQ ratio can be even 1. And if we will give extra oxygen, there is a possibility that some deoxygenated blood that was able to leak through the obstruction will pick him up and will carry this oxygen to the tissues. So with partial obstruction, extra oxygen can help.